Well, good Monday evening, Piper. As always, hope it finds everybody doing good. Y'all excuse my voice. It's this this pre-pollen has got me. It does it every year, so y'all bear with me. I'm gonna squeak and scratch a little bit, but we'll get through it. I am smoking some Morning View that Denali Dave sent me from Strauss Tobacconist, and I gotta say this has been an excellent blend, one that I've truly enjoyed. Ranks up there with Wall Street in my opinion. Very similar but different in its own way, and I thank you, Dave, for sending it. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, bro. And I'm smoking it in a Hard Castle Bulldog. Bulldog. Haven't smoked this one in a while, so tonight when I go to bed, before I go to bed, I got several pipes that needs to be shined and cleaned. I've been very neglectful of that here lately, and I'm just kind of in the mood to do a little shining tonight and cleaning. So, I want to say thank you to my new subscribers. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you. And I want to say there's a couple. One from Native Gun today, and several from Dale Okie Cigar and Pipe Smoker that have been marked spam, and I went through and approved them. I don't know why they're showing up as spam, and that's been going on here lately. So if you post a comment and you don't see it, something's going on. I got to go in and approve a couple of them. I don't know what's happening on that. So y'all, if you don't see your comment, give me a little time until I realize, do you get to that part of the program that shows that, and I'll approve it and get it on. But I don't know, with this YouTube, Google crap, and looks to me like they've taken down the community part, where the social part, where you could click on and see what everybody's kind of doing, who they're commenting on. And I like that. Of all these new crazy changes, that was a feature that I liked, because a lot of times I could run across new presenters through someone else, and I don't see it on there today. So it's, I wish they would get one way and stay, come on, people. But I'll tell you guys and girls, that the bass are on the beds, is what I've been told, and I have got to get out there. Weather, God permitting and weather permitting, Thursday afternoon, I'm going to do my best to be on the lake and try to pull some bass in. It's I got the fever. I got to get my tackle box straightened out. I think that'll be my pipe project tonight. We'll be shining up and cleaning some pipe. Tomorrow night I'll be straightening up some tackle and bait. So I got to restring 2 or 3 rod and reels. I like to restring them because they get brittle, And I have lost some big ones over some brittle line before. And you get off in a tournament where there's money involved, in which I don't do tournaments much anymore. It's just like everything else, even like YouTube, it can get, there's just so much drama and politics, and just, as Pipe Nab and I were talking about, a pecking order, and I don't do pecking orders too much. And so several of us have just slowly eased out of the little bass clubs around here, because they just got, I don't know, there's always somebody stirring up crap, so I don't want to be a part of that either. But today I was in the little town where our restaurant is, and a police car run up behind somebody, and he wasn't trying to pull that car over, but I guess he was trying to get around and turned his lights on. First thing that car did was hit his brakes. I thought the cop he run off in a convenience store parking lot. And it made me think, several of y'all know that I used to work in the funeral industry for a couple of years. I actually did my internship back then. You could do it before, was a registered, internist, to be an embalmer / funeral director. And then you could do it then before you went to school, as opposed, you could have that out of the way. In other words, I don't think they still allow you to do that. But anyway, when I got down ready to go, got to discussing what pay would be, and I said, no, I'm gonna go get me another convenience store, and I did. But after I left there for a couple of years, a friend of mine an acquaintance, a guy that I knew was elected coroner, and I went on and become a deputy coroner and investigator for the coroner's office here, and it would take a couple of weekends a month. I needed the money. We just moved in this home, and money was tight, and had 2 little boys, and one of them was a teenager at that point, 13, 14 years old, and needed it. So I would take 4 or 5 nights a month and a couple of weekends, and you worked at home. If you was at your job and you got a call, you had to roll. If you were at home at night, you had to roll. They'd call you on your cell phone. Back then, they'd call you on your cell phone, and you had a pager. But we always had a Suburban that belonged to the coroner, that if you were on call, you took it with you and it had all your stuff in it. And we actually did some occasional removal. Sometimes the funeral home would do it, but in the Suburban, it had all of the, anything you may need, and all your cameras and everything, because you had to do, if you went to a homicide or an accident or something, you had to take photos and do reports and all this. And the Suburban was equipped with emergency beacons. It had a siren. It had strobe lights in the grill. The headlights would flash. And back then, though, it didn't have a strobe light on the dash. It had one of those that revolved, just had a revolving mechanism in it, and with a bulb, and the little thing goes around and it throws out the lights. Well, it had a little cover, a little plastic cover you could put on it, and but I found over the years, like this policeman today, what I would do if I needed, I rarely used the lights, only on certain calls, because they wanted us there very quickly, even though there was nothing you could do. But in the case of an accident where there's a vehicle accident or something, they want the roadway cleared because they got fear of causing another accident. So 30 minutes you had to be there, and you could be 30 miles from where it happened. You had to roll sometimes. You had to really, and that's when the lights would come in handy. If you was needing to roll down that interstate at 85 miles an hour, you was running late, it would come in handy. But I learned the hard way. If you need to get around somebody, your first human nature, you run up behind them, you're riding on their bumper trying to get around, you hit them lights. First thing they're going to do is hit the brakes. That is instinct. I do it. Cop gets behind me, turns his light. First thing you do is hit those brakes. And then you trying to stay off of them. You're back there in the emergency vehicle. So what I would do is I'd back off car length or two, and then I would hit the lights, let them see it, because they was going to hit them brakes, and it'd give me plenty of time to get on mine and let them get over, and I could get around them, But a lot of cops, they want to run up behind you, and then they want to turn them lights on, and it scares people. I remember one night, my stepson would go with me occasionally. He liked to go, and I was real hesitant to let him go, but he'd sit in the Suburban. But we had a traffic accident out on a rural country road, and call, he'd come in. It was about 8 o'clock, and he said he wanted to go, and I said, well, okay. And, I want you to, well, even when we get to the funeral home, I would prefer because I knew I was going to have to do the removal on this one. I just didn't want him exposed to a lot of that. Although on a particular DWI case, I wanted him to see firsthand what alcohol would do, and I think it made a lasting impression on him drinking and driving, because during the 2 years that I worked with the coroner's office, I personally investigated 7 traffic fatalities. 7 out of 7 involved alcohol, and 6 out of those 7 were the people doing the drinking. 1 was hit by a drunk driver, and that was just the most terrible. There were survivors there on the scene, and I mean, there was a young man hit by a drunk driver, and it was just terrible. Most of the hardest thing I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, we were en route to this call, and so we got running behind, and I was trying to make up some time and turned off of this main road. As soon as we got off the interstate, traffic began to. I was going down the interstate, and I got off on a road called Well Road, and it's got a lot of traffic on it. So I went ahead and turned the lights on. Exited off of the interstate, and when I got right down to the end of that road, it becomes very rural at that point. As soon as I made the right-hand turn, I put that old Suburban in the floor. We were almost past, we were past time to get there in the time frame that they wanted us. State police was really bad about wanting us. I mean, they'd get on your butt about it. And I was about 5 minutes from there, but I was sitting right on the time frame. Because I live rural. I live out of town, and something happens in another part of town, like I say, I may be 30 miles from there, So made the right-hand turn onto the rural road, and I put that Suburban in the floor. I had a big V8 in it, and it was winding up. It was roaring, and I had the lights strobing in the grill, the headlights strobing, and I had the little light on the dash. But you had a little plastic vinyl cover that you could put over to keep it from blinding you at night, And I don't know, running about 70, somebody had knocked the curb sign down. And I looked up, and all I seen was a field. Of course, I snatched the wheel, and tire started squealing. It went from one side of the road down in the ditch. I whipped it back up. Tires just, balling. And somehow in all this, the cover flew off of that light, and every time it come around, all I could see was blue. Red. That was a red one. Just red, just red. And I couldn't see nothing for the light. It was just, and by the grace of God, I went from ditch to ditch. Had my son in there, no doubt, of all things. Out there driving fast with your child in the car, just ridiculous. But when I got that joker stopped, my knees were like jello. I was literally shaking. I reached down, I turned those dash lights off, I turned those grill lights off. I turned the little dash light off, and I pulled it down off the dash and set it on the hump in the Suburban. And I drove on the rest of the way about 50 miles an hour. Speed limit was 45. And when I got there, first thing, a state trooper, I could tell what I said, let me tell you something. From this point forward, I'll get here. I'm not going to lollygag. But I'm not going to kill myself or somebody else trying to get here. I'm not going to lollygag around. I'll run fast as I can, but I'm not going to drive at breakneck speed. That's ridiculous. And he said, I hear you, So it was just utterly crazy. And from that point on, I'd get there as quick as I could, but I was not. I don't know that I ever turned those lights back on again. I found that you create less havoc, less confusion and nervousness from other motorists just when you turn your lights on, put them on bright, and turn your flashers on. Something about those strobe lights in the grill, something about the lights, especially with a siren. Just people go, and it will get you killed, I'm telling you. But I did that a couple of years, picked up a few extra dollars till we got over the hump, and I would lay down. I'd have to be on call. Lay down about 9 o'clock, try to get a little sleep on Friday night. The phone started ringing, and literally would not be back in bed till Sunday night, And it got pretty tough. But this stuff's smoking good. Really enjoying it. Again, thank you, Dave. That is a great blend from Strauss Tobacconists out of Cincinnati and Florence. So it's a good one. If y'all hadn't had a chance to try it, y'all be sure to do. But I'm going to wrap this up, go clean a few pipes, and hit the hay. tomorrow night, straighten some bait. I may do that on some of that on video. But anyway, till then, y'all have a good one. Take care. God bless you.